Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
You know, there's a saying in investing, a saying in entrepreneurship. Don't throw good money after bad. It means once you realize that a business isn't going to make it, don't keep pouring investment into it. Don't keep putting new money into ruined, rotten, old money. Cut your losses. If Le'Veon Bell and the Pittsburgh Steelers go bad this year, if that investment comes to the point of cutting ties, who should be ready to capitalize? Who should jump in? Who should trade for Le'Veon Bell? Because I've got a team that might create the ultimate draw it up in the dirt, the ultimate backyard football. I think the Green Bay Packers should be all in on Le'Veon Bell. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. You can join the conversation. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. What do you think? What's the perfect fit for Le'Veon Bell, either after this season or who should go in early, all the way, push their chips in, and go all in now? We'll be talking about today who will be on the firing line come Sunday night in Dallas. The outcome of that game is going to determine someone's future employment on one of the two teams. Whoever loses that game, the New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, somebody just took their first step to the unemployment line. We'll also talk about what's the next big thing in the NFL. Could it possibly be OU's head football coach, Lincoln Riley? But we start with Le'Veon Bell. And we start with Le'Veon Bell's future home. There's a piece up on ESPN.com where several insiders here at the company take a look at where could Le'Veon Bell be next year. To give you an example, Mike Clay, a writer here at ESPN, says the Buffalo Bills make a ton of sense. $90 million in cap space, and LaShawn McCoy will be 30 years old. Our friend Dominique Foxworth, along with Kevin Seifert, say, no, it's the New York Jets who are ready with a young rookie quarterback on a rookie deal to spread money around. And what would a weapon like Le'Veon Bell do for Sam Darnold? Mike Sando, who's going to join us a little bit later in the show in the 5 o'clock hour, says it's the Cleveland Browns that make the most sense. Same analysis as the Jets. Rookie deal quarterback, cap space, up-and-coming team that makes sense for Le'Veon Bell. And still yet, Field Yates says it's the Oakland Raiders who are primed to make a run at Le'Veon Bell. But I want to talk about it a little sooner. I don't want to wait for free agency, and here's why. Le'Veon Bell is the ultimate win-now player. It's hard for me to envision some of these teams like the Jets and the Browns taking on a guy who changes your fortune now, but he's also sort of a final piece of the puzzle now, not a build around it when you don't have an offensive line. Rather, a team who's ready, who can win now. And there's two teams that come to mind for me in the win-now mode. Now, their nows are slightly different. I give you first the San Francisco 49ers, and I followed up with the Green Bay Packers. But before I explain who's ready to capitalize, let's first set the premise of why in the world would the Pittsburgh Steelers trade Le'Veon Bell? And that takes me back to putting good money after bad. I don't think it's far-fetched to envision the situation of the Steelers getting to the point of cutting bait with Le'Veon Bell. Now, why? We can put out several potential reasons. And none of them, by the way, are far-fetched. First of all, the idea that the locker room is already poisoned, much less what it would be like in Week 10 if Le'Veon Bell sits out until then to join some NFL roster. And in this case, we'll talk about it with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because this is what his teammates, and I remind you, we heard this yesterday, this is what his offensive line sounds like. This is Mike Pouncey talking about Le'Veon Bell today.
How do you think the words last week about Le'Veon were received?
Who's that?
The message about Le'Veon last week, how do you think it was received?
Who's that?
Well, just that there seems to be a lot of opinions about what was said. You know.
Everybody has the right to opinion. So the First Amendment.
That's Marquise Pouncey, brother of Mike Pouncey, who's always been a Pittsburgh Steeler. And that is him talking about Le'Veon Bell, and let's just call it a less than flattering fashion. I'll give you another situation. Maybe this one's a little bit further of a stretch, but what if by week 8, week 9, the season's not shaping up the way the Pittsburgh Steelers thought it was going to? The trade deadline is October 30th. What if the Steelers aren't the team they thought they were? What's it worth to add a Le'Veon Bell for the final 6 weeks of the season? I understand 6 weeks is a lot in the NFL. That's a lifetime, and fortunes can change over a 6-week time frame. But you get to the point where you say, we've got a guy who's going to play with us for a third of the season. Maybe, just maybe, he has more value to us on the trade market than a season that isn't going the way we want it to. And then you recognize, third, that this guy's not coming back. Our future isn't together. That seems somewhat certain now between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Le'Veon Bell. So if the future only ends in divorce, and the now has only so much upside, and the locker room is already poisoned, maybe he has more value on the way out the door than on the way coming in the door. And then that brings me to this. Who's primed? Who's back in that win now mode? I said two teams, San Francisco 49ers and Green Bay Packers. Two different nows. San Francisco 49ers have $60 million in cap space next year. They wouldn't be able to negotiate an extension until the new league season starts, but they have a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo that's in a different class than Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. They have a guy that they're not on a 2, 3, 5-year plan with Jimmy Garoppolo. This is a guy who's older and ready, by all accounts, to start winning now. And he's also a guy completely bereft of offensive weapons. The offensive line in San Francisco is not good, but it's not New York Jet bad. And right now he's running out Alfred Morris and Matt Breida behind Jimmy Garoppolo. The idea of Le'Veon Bell in San Francisco makes sense to me. How much would that help the win now over the next year to 2 years with Jimmy Garoppolo? But the one that really I find intriguing comes from an idea from NFL.com. Adam, Cerruti, help me out. It's Adam Rank who wrote this column. That's right?
Correct.
He's going to jump on our show because I want to flesh this out with Adam. He has an intriguing idea where he suggests all in Green Bay Packers with Le'Veon Bell. Now, the Packers have 2 first-round draft picks next year. They got that second one in a trade with the New Orleans Saints. They have the ammunition, and they have the most fascinating offensive creativity, the offensive blank slate you can imagine, because what is always said about Aaron Rodgers? He's a draw-it-up-in-the-dirt guy. He plays off schedule. He wins plays with his talent. It's not the offensive scheme. It's not Mike McCarthy. It's sometimes not even the play they drew up on how Aaron Rodgers wins plays. And that's exactly how it goes with Le'Veon Bell as well. Patient, sits behind the line, doesn't necessarily go through the hole that's designed, but the one that he sees. Can you imagine these two together in the same backfield? Every year you have Aaron Rodgers, you're in win now mode. Le'Veon Bell wins now. 2, draw it up in the dirt, otherworldly talents in Green Bay, a team with the ammunition. Green Bay should be the one that pushes all their chips into the center and says, let's go get Le'Veon Bell if the Steelers get to that moment. Our own Tim Hasselbeck, by the way, says, doesn't matter if the Steelers have Le'Veon Bell or not, they can win. I'm going to play that sound for you when I come back, and I want to hear from you. Do you think the Green Bay Packers make sense? If not, who should go all in on Le'Veon Bell if the Steelers get to this moment? That's my opening take, brought to you by Firestone Complete Auto Care. Keeping cars running newer, longer, whatever you drive a Firestone. 888-729-3776, your thoughts. And, hey, if the Steelers, if their season doesn't go the way they want it to, are the two teams playing tonight, the Ravens and Bengals, primed to take advantage of the opportunity? That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Mike, have you had any recent correspondence with Le'Veon? I have not. No.
This man staying away is costing him $855,000 per game. Right. The person losing money is him. What are you mad about? You want to get paid.
Le'Veon has worked very hard in this league to get to where he is. Mike Tomlin's worked very hard to get to where he is, and so is that football team.
Bell being there would have helped them win that game.
It's so draining, it's tired of saying the same thing over and over again, and the media kind of beating a dead horse. I mean, he's not here, so what are we going to do? I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Imagine it. Imagine Le'Veon Bell as a Green Bay Packer. Imagine the Pittsburgh Steelers getting to the point where he has more value in trade than he does on the squad. And imagine the Green Bay Packers being in a situation where their season could use Le'Veon Bell more than the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. You can join the conversation, 888-729-3776. Give me your thoughts. Who should go all in on Le'Veon Bell? We'll talk about his free agent prospects a little bit later in the show, and we'll bring in Adam Rank, who brought up this idea of the Packers trading for Le'Veon Bell. The Packers have 2 first-round picks. And that brings up 2 questions. I'll go to you guys first. I'm going to ask you, Cerruti, do you think it's magic or is it disaster to have 2 guys like Aaron Rodgers and Le'Veon Bell who play completely, almost independently, but otherworldly with their talent? What I mean by that is off schedule, on their own, creating plays that aren't designed. Le'Veon Bell sitting behind the line, seeing what he sees, what holes present themselves. And Rodgers dancing around out there looking for amazing passes. I would imagine that's impossible to defend. I would also imagine that's really hard to play with along the offensive line.
Yes, but isn't that kind of what he does in Pittsburgh now? I mean, Ben always breaks tackles and makes plays outside the pocket, and they have one of the better offensive lines in the league in Pittsburgh, so I don't know if it would be that different.
And here's the second question. What's he worth? If he's traded, and Nuno, you pointed this out to me earlier, the trade deadline is October 30th. That's essentially, what is that, Nuno, week 8, week 9, somewhere in that range?
It's week 9.
And Bell doesn't have to come back until week 11. So somebody trades for him. He can come back at that time, play under the franchise tag. What's that worth? Say it's the Packers, or say it's the Niners. What do you trade for less than half a season of Le'Veon Bell? Is it a first-round draft pick? The Packers have 2. Certainly not 2 first-rounders. It's not Khalil Mack range of trade for a guy who you only have for half a season, is it? What's it cost to trade for Le'Veon Bell? What do you think, Cerruti?
But are you assuming that they're going to re-sign him next year? Like, is this a long-term thing? Because if it's just if it's a 10-game rental, like, there's no way I'm giving up a first-round pick.
It's less than a 10-game rental at that, go ahead.
If I'm the Packers and I'm planning on re-signing him, you got 2 first-round picks. I'd give up 1. I don't think you'd even need to get there. I think the Steelers would do it for less because they're not bringing him back.
Absolutely. You have to presume whoever trades for him tries to work out an extension, but they can't do that until the next league season begins. They can't begin negotiations because he's sitting under the franchise tag. So he's forced to come back, but this time not for the Steelers, but maybe for the Packers. Let's go to John from Michigan. John, you're on the Will Cain Show.
Hi, yeah. Nice to meet you all. Nice to talk to you. I appreciate it.
You too. What's
up?
If
I were the Lions, I'm with Rich Eisen here. I would go for Le'Veon Bell if I were the Lions. Think about trading maybe Kerryon Johnson and a second or third round pick for him.
I think the Lions are among the teams that would make sense for Le'Veon Bell. They've tried to solve that running game for Matt Stafford for years to somewhat no avail. We'll see about Kerryon Johnson, by the way. I think the Lions are in that camp. They're in that win-now camp I described, like the Niners, like the Packers. But it just is so enticing, man. It's magical to think about Bell and Rodgers together. It could destroy the league. It could be offensive weaponry like no one outside of Kansas City and above what Kansas City has. It easily goes to number one at the charts just on those two guys alone. So what if he's not a Steeler? What does that mean? Our own Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, says no problem. No problem for the Steelers. Not this year.
I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have the best offensive line in football. And James Conner can be a productive back, much like we saw week one. And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you have to be aware of the business side of this, you can win the AFC North with James Conner as your starting running back. That's the problem for Le'Veon Bell. That's the problem for him. Well, they can win games with James Conner as their running back. And they can use Jalen Samuels in some of the more passing down situations because he's able to do that type of stuff. And so this isn't, to me, one of these things where they're like, hey, we are better with Le'Veon. They know that.
Obviously.
Everybody knows that. But they can win without him. That's the other thing.
And if Tim is right, if they are winning, I imagine their incentive to trade him would be low. He'd have the same value to them going through the home stretch, going on a playoff run that he would to the Packers. That would mean, I would imagine, Le'Veon Bell is a Steeler through the end of the season. But if Tim's wrong, what if the Steelers aren't going swimmingly by week 8, by week 9? Could one of the two teams playing tonight on Thursday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens or the Cincinnati Bengals, be ready to take advantage? There's a sneaky undercurrent of people who are talking up both of these teams. First of all, Tony Jefferson, Ravens safety, says that like everyone else, from Louis Riddick to everyone I've turned the television on, Joe Flacco's real this year. So are the Ravens ready to go? Listen to Tony Jefferson.
It was great, obviously to see Joe do that. But Joe's a true pro. He's a quarterback. And in this business, when you're the quarterback and things aren't going the right way, the quarterback's mostly going to get the blame. Joe's got some weapons down. He's excited about the opportunity. He has right now the three-headed monster. All three of them scored last week that are new to his wide receiver corps. So, it's always good to see the old Super Bowl MVP go out there and show that he's got it.
That's Ravens safety Tony Jefferson on Freddie and Fitzsimmons. Meanwhile, Bengals wide receiver A.J. Green's been talking about their running back Joe Mixon, and he says you have to mention Mixon in the same category as Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley. He's there with those guys. But I'm going to ask you this. I don't know that the Ravens and the Bengals are anything more than they've been the last 3 years, and that's average. The Bengals, 7-9 last year, 6-9-1 in 2016. The Ravens, 9-7 last year, 8-8 in 2016. And let me ask you this. What's changed? What's different? Joe Flacco's going to have to be somebody that he's never been in this league, or that he's only been on a flash on occasion, because we have data on Joe Flacco. We have a decade's worth. He's average. And behind Joe Flacco, outside of one outstanding year, so have been the Ravens. And if Joe Mixon isn't Le'Veon Bell, what's different about the Bengals this year? Same with Joe Flacco. Andy Dalton has been average to below average. I don't know. I look at the additions these teams have made in the offseason, and yeah, the Bengals added a little bit to the offensive line, and Cordy Glenn and Billy Price, their offensive line draftee out of Ohio State, and maybe Joe Mixon progresses. And the Bengals, the Ravens signed Michael Crabtree, John Brown, but I can't look at those additions and say these two teams are ready to jump up from where they've been the last couple of years. Are these suddenly 11-5 teams? Are these suddenly teams ready to take advantage of the Steelers? No. Unless the Steelers regress to average, this division should be the Steelers again. It's just week 2, but I got to tell you something. What goes down on Sunday night, Giants Cowboys, it's going to put somebody on the firing line. It might be Jason Garrett. It might be Eli Manning. But after this weekend, somebody just took their first step towards unemployment. We'll talk to Darren Woodson about it next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Did you know ADT can design and install a smart home just for you? A new smart home at your service, customized for your lifestyle. ADT professionals can even show you how to use your new smart home features. Now, that's what I call warm-up service. It's all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice and backed by 24/7 protection. Visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can help keep your home safe and smart.
Cowboys and Giants, is there one of these teams that's more desperate than the other?
Right now, it seems like the Cowboys' offense is falling short.
We got to start better. We got to start faster. That's not Dallas Cowboys football.
They have to give Dak a little more freedom to operate and be a little more of a dynamic player than what they've allowed him to be the last couple of years.
What can go wrong will go wrong. It's just who the Cowboys are.
I know this much. If people stop showing up, buying tickets to the Big Top, then the guy who runs the Big Top, I think, will be looking for a new carnival barker.
The only thing I would say to Mort on that is the guy running the Big Top is the carnival barker in Dallas. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. And can we do everyone a favor here, namely me, Bubba? Do we not have to hear Stephen A. say what can go wrong will go wrong? At least during the little 3 hours of solace I have here on the Will Cain Show? Can we just not have that impenetrable argument, what can go wrong will go wrong when it comes to America's team? Can we just reserve those hours for First Take? Can I not be subjected to that?
Well, it looks like that one, slipped through the old rejoin. But, I'm still on the I will not be playing the booger Cowboys are terrible, so you don't have to worry about that.
No, I appreciate that. It's only when your fill-ins come in here that they like to remind me of boogers.
Not on my watch.
Cowboys will be terrible. Thank you, sir. You've got a nice filter there here on the Will Cain Show. Darren Woods is going to jump on the show in just a moment. Join us. We're going to talk about what's going on around the NFL, including could this put somebody on the firing line in Dallas or New York, the outcome of the game this weekend. But first, I wanted to ask you guys if you saw this story. This came out. I saw it in USA Today. Here's the headline. High school football coach fired amid investigation into water possibly spiked with male enhancement drug. So the story goes almost like out of, I don't know, American Pie or Varsity Blues or one of these high school comedy movies, that some players spiked the water jug at a JV football practice with a male enhancement drug. And the coach, the head football coach, knew of it after the fact, but he didn't notify any of the players or parents that the water was possibly contaminated. So, first of all, I didn't know, and maybe that's just me, male enhancement drugs come in liquefied format that you could just kind of dump it into a big old jug of water or Gatorade and have it dissolve and no problem. And then I just wonder what that practice looked like. Probably a lot of hard hitting. Wouldn't you guess? Something like that? I don't know.
I don't know. Did it work? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I imagine there should be some visual evidence of that fact. Does it come in liquefied format? Let's go to our male enhancement drug expert, former Dallas Cowboy, Darren Woodson, now in studio giving us a straight talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones. There's only so many dudes that I could make that joke with and think I could get away with it. You're on the list, and I could be wrong.
We're about to find out.
Now seething.
Hey, I'm staying away from that, man. I'm staying.
Did you know? In all seriousness, did you know? Does it come in liquefied format?
I have
that's
man.
New to me.
Hey, maybe I don't know. Hey, I don't know. I don't know right now. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Y'all can tweet me on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at Will Cain Show. Like I said, 3-time Super Bowl champ and ESPN NFL analyst Darren Woods is in studio giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Darren, I don't think I'm doing a hot take here. I don't think I'm issuing something hot off the presses. I actually think this is 100% true. Whoever loses this game, Cowboys-Giants, Sunday night, that's putting somebody on the firing line.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to be fired on Monday, but they're well on their way. It could be Jason Garrett. It could be Scott Linehan. It could be Eli Manning. But whoever it is that loses is going to start looking for a future beyond one of these guys.
Yeah.
Right or wrong?
I agree. I agree. And I wouldn't say that on the Giants side. I don't know if Eli would be on the firing line or if Pat Shermer. Definitely, he just coming in on his first year of his contract. So, but on the Cowboys side, absolutely. Listen, you can't. And I understand the question as far as which team is it more important to win this football game? I look at the Cowboys and say it this way: if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're already 0-1, you're at home against a division rival. You have to win that game because it's not only a must-win at home because you're playing a division rival. You always say you have to win your home games, but secondly, at the end, in the back end of the season, you have to travel to New York once again and play the Giants. And if they beat you once, we all know this is a game of confidence. They beat you once, they're going to probably more than likely beat you twice. And I just think the Cowboys right now at home have to win this game. And if you look at I'm sitting here looking at the Giants schedule as we go on. If they lose this game, the Giants, I mean, it's like murderer's row with the Giants.
I know.
They just played the Jags. They got the Cowboys. They got the Texans. They have the Saints, Panthers, Eagles, Falcons, Redskins, and then 49ers. I mean, it continues with them. They have to find a way to win this game as well. But I think it's the Cowboys because of the home team. They have to take care of their business.
And that schedule, by the way, Darren, for what it's worth, is why I think the Giants could be put in a tailspin and start looking for a future beyond Eli maybe next season. But let's move on. Let me ask you about this, man. Again, talking to Darren Woodson here on the Will Cain Show. I've kind of been exploring the idea, toying with the idea of what could Le'Veon Bell be worth in a trade and who could he be worth it to. And let me just ask you this. You were obviously a defender. Would Le'Veon Bell and Aaron Rodgers together be almost impossible to defend?
No one would want to see that. No one. And now you're talking about the Green Bay Packers pretty much trying to emulate what the Rams are doing. Push the chips in, which I would not mind. If you're a Green Bay fan and you have talent-wise, the best quarterback in all of football in Aaron Rodgers. I'm talking when other quarterbacks start saying that you're the best, you're pretty much the best. And if you have him right now with the window of opportunity to win championships, and why not push your chips all the way in? Why not go grab talent that's out there? And Le'Veon Bell is a complete talent. He's a guy what Green Bay has been looking for the longest time is a running game. They've been looking for a guy that's dynamic in the backfield. He would fit right in within that situation. He can run between the tackles. You can spread him out wide. He can find the mismatches. He can do a little bit, run the screen game, whatever you want. That would be the perfect fit for a guy like Le'Veon Bell.
Totally agree. Last question, Darren Woodson. I'm down to something like 30 seconds, but I want to look forward to tonight. Ravens, Bengals. Is A.J. Green, and I think I'm going to do this story every year until it changes, is A.J. Green criminally underrated as a wide receiver?
He is underrated as a wide receiver, and we don't see him a whole lot, nor has Andy Dalton been able to. Listen, if you put A.J. Green with Aaron Rodgers, put A.J. Green with a top-notch quarterback in the league, you're going to see A.J. Green blossom. But he's in a situation where, hey, listen, let's just call it what it is. It's not like Dalton is a guy that is a premier elite quarterback, so it hurts them in some ways. But this is a team, got a win last week. Joe Mixon really showed up, had 95 yards. I think he goes over 100 this week. This is a team that if they get on all cylinders, get going, they have personnel at the wide receiver spot and the running back spot that can give them a chance to win football games.
All right, man. Thank you for running over. Hope you hydrated. Stay hard. All right?
Appreciate it.
Darren Woodson here on the Will Cain Show. See you, man. All right, coming up, is Oklahoma head football coach Lincoln Riley the future of the NFL? That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. What's the next big thing in the NFL? Maybe the better question is, who's the next big thing in the NFL? Could it be Oklahoma's head football coach Lincoln Riley? That in just a moment here on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Real quick, we've toyed around with the idea, who should go all in on Le'Veon Bell? Where could his landing spot be? Maybe not just next year, but perhaps this year in trade. Let's go to Rudy from North Carolina. You're on the Will Cain Show, Rudy.
Hey, what's going on, Will? Everybody seems to just not be thinking about the elephant in the room. What if he went to New England? You got a good coach on offense and an offensive scheme They have arguably the best tight end ever. And then you've got the GOAT, Tom Brady. They've run Super Bowls with half a running back. Imagine what they would do if they had Le'Veon Bell. Be very afraid if he goes to New England.
Rudy, I think you are absolutely correct. It just doesn't seem like a Patriots move, though, to go all in on otherworldly talent. Outside of Tom Brady, there's no big-time talent that they've really hitched their wagon to. You could say Gronk, but the relationship between Gronk and New England over the past year has been one that feels anything but permanent. It feels tenuous. It feels day-to-day. So it just doesn't feel like New England to go in on a big-time star talent. The only time we can really look at them doing something like that and just blowing everybody away is when they went in on Randy Moss. And they bought Randy Moss at a low point. They got him as a value investment. They didn't go pay top dollar to bring in Randy Moss. They resurrected Randy Moss. I have a hard time seeing them going in at top dollar on Le'Veon Bell. But Rudy, if they did, I think you're absolutely right. That weapon, that versatile weapon of Le'Veon Bell with Tom Brady, they would maximize him. They would figure out ways to gut defenses. You had one comment there that I think is fascinating. An offensive mind, talking about Josh McDaniels. We've talked the last couple of days about why the Bill Belichick coaching tree has failed. You know, from Al Groh to Eric Mangini to Josh McDaniels his first time around to Matt Patricia's first game. What's going on? Do guys try to copy? Do they try to emulate Bill Belichick? Or is it, honestly, they're not learning that much from Belichick? I mean, of course they're learning by being around him, osmosis, but is he bringing them behind the curtain? Is he teaching them the ways of being a head coach? There's one piece of evidence that suggests the answer to that is absolutely no. Remember when Josh McDaniels was reportedly going to go to the Colts this offseason? In fact, had a verbal agreement to go to the Colts. What brought him back? Not just that the Patriots committed to him, paid him, talked about the future with him, but that Belichick was going to bring him behind the scenes. Belichick was going to bring him in and give him the secrets. Belichick was going to groom him. You got to fill in the blank here. He hasn't been doing that for other guys and wasn't doing it for McDaniels up to that point. Groh, Crennel, Patricia, Mangini, none of them were groomed by Belichick. They were just around him. They got to see what he did, but only what he did in the open, not behind the supposed vault, the closed doors that McDaniels now has access to. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. I was listening to the radio last night, and friend of the show, Kevin Clark, who writes for The Ringer, was on talking about the innovations in the NFL and largely a conversation he had with Andy Reid. And he said Andy Reid told him the NFL is always 5 years behind whatever's going on in college football. Whatever innovates in college football, you'll see it 5 years later in the NFL. And what he brought up, and he was talking to Nick Wright on Mad Dog Radio, what he brought up was that so many of the teams in the NFL now run the spread. They're running the Big 12 offense. I don't know what number it was, 70, 80% of teams running the spread. And a few years ago when Chip Kelly came in and started bringing in spread concepts, he was mocked. He was derided. People openly cheered for Chip Kelly's failure. And look, man, I'm not telling you that Chip Kelly is a massive genius in the world, but I'm going to tell you this. Genius is never rewarded during its lifetime. Genius is only ever appreciated after its death. Picasso died penniless and with one ear. Picasso wasn't appreciated until museums long after his death saw value in his work. Rich guys across Europe saw value in his work. He didn't reap any of the benefits of his own genius. And that's what they're going to say about me, for what it's worth, by the way, as well. They're going to mock me, hate me, watch me, listen to me, and appreciate me after I'm dead. You could call me the Picasso of sports talk. But what are they doing with Chip Kelly? Same thing. Mocked him, derided him, and now after he's gone, copy him. That's Chip Kelly. But it got me thinking, what's next? Like, what's bubbling up in college football that we're 5 years away from seeing in the NFL? What's the next innovation? Kansas City's on the cutting edge. Andy Reid's always willing to innovate, always willing to look ahead. What he's doing with Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt, other teams will copy that in 2 to 3 years. What McVay's doing in L.A., Dallas will start doing in 7, 8 years. So what will the really innovative teams, the Kansas Cities and the Los Angeles Rams, copy from college football now, and who will they copy it from? Because when I talk about Jason Garrett potentially getting fired in Dallas or Scott Linehan being out in Dallas, you know one of the names that's always forwarded back to me from guys in the know? Lincoln Riley. Watch for Lincoln Riley, head football coach at Oklahoma. Maybe I don't know yet, or maybe we don't know yet exactly what that offensive innovation will be, but it looks like Lincoln Riley may be the guy bringing it along. Kirk Herbstreit here at ESPN said this just a few weeks ago. He said something like 28, 29, 30 teams in the NFL called Lincoln Riley in the offseason to pick his mind about the offensive schemes Oklahoma was running under Baker Mayfield. We talk often about the people. Maybe it'll be Chris Peterson at Washington. Maybe it'll be Josh McDaniels like we just talked about. Hell, maybe it'll be Urban Meyer. Paul Feinbaum says he won't be at Ohio State much longer. But maybe it'll be Lincoln Riley. And I can't wait to see what innovation he brings to the NFL. And I can only hope my team gets on it first. I'd like for once to see the Dallas Cowboys innovate, not run a 2008-9 offense out there, but maybe a 2022 offense out there. And I'll tell you what, if they lose on Sunday, that project will get started. The Lincoln Riley project will get started. That's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE network. Somebody's going on the firing line in Dallas or New York. Next on The Will Cain Show.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
I think everybody's ready to come to grips with the facts. If the Dallas Cowboys lose to the New York Giants on Sunday night, Scott Linehan and or Jason Garrett are headed for the unemployment line. But if the Cowboys win on Sunday night, I believe it's the first step towards Eli Manning also losing his job. Losing his job as quarterback of the New York Giants. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. I'll explain that in just a moment, why Eli Manning's job is on the line. What's up? What, Bubba?
We just want to know, we're all kind of just talking back here after the Darren Woodson interview. First there was your Picasso Van Gogh error, but everyone on Twitter let you know about that. But what was that ending to Woodson? Is that like your new tagline when you told him
stay hard?
Is that your new how you end interviews now? You just tell them to stay hard?
Stay hard. I don't know. I kind of like it. What do you think? Should I do it? Should I make that my thing? Stay hard. Stay hard.
You know, aggressive.
Yeah. Stay hard. Well, you know.
All right, thanks, Darren. Stay hard.
Stay hard. You know how we came into the segment. You know about the high school boys spiking the water cooler with male enhancement drugs. I just thought we'd come out nice symmetry, come in and out the same way.
Sure. All right.
I can't steal that, by the way, because there is a radio station in Dallas that I've been a fan of throughout my life that employs that saying, "Stay hard." And you're right.
So you basically just stole it? You blatantly just stole it from them?
It just worked then, okay? Stay hard.
We're
talking about male enhancement drugs, and it worked. I wasn't talking about male enhancement drugs. I think I liked the symmetry, okay? That's a thing, right? Stay hard. That's a thing people say to each other, right?
I mean, my dad has some statements like that he likes to throw around. He said he has two of them that I know off the top of my head. One is keep your stick on the ice, and the other one is don't let it drag in the mud.
What?
I don't really know what they mean, but he said it my entire life. Like, those are two things he just always says.
I'm unfamiliar with those, Cerruti. I really have. Maybe it's because I'm from Texas and you're from Connecticut, but keep your stick on the ice wasn't a thing that fathers said to sons.
I feel like that's
and I don't really know.
I feel like it's a keep your head on a swivel kind of thing. Like, make sure you're always ready for the action. Keep your stick on the ice. I have no idea. I've never heard anyone in hockey use that, but sure.
But why would you be dragging your stick through the mud?
I think I'm not sure. You know what? I'm going to just leave that alone.
Let's get him on the phone. Call up Joe.
Let's call Joe Cerruti. Let's figure out what keep your stick out of the mud means exactly. The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. And you're right, Bubba. I'm glad you pointed out, because many on Twitter are pointing out, I'm fake smart. I'm a fraud once again, because it's Van Gogh that cut off his ear, not Picasso. And to make it even worse, I read a biography of Van Gogh. Lust for Life. Still messed it up. You can lead a horse to water. Can't make him drink.
Well, at least you know now.
Sure do. If the loser of the game on Sunday night between the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants, if their season doesn't get turned around ASAP, and statistically odds are they will not, 10% of teams that start 0-2 end up making the playoffs. 10%. If they don't beat the odds, somebody's headed for the unemployment line. Now, in Dallas, everybody's willing to accept that. And reports are, perhaps even the Joneses. After the game against the Carolina Panthers, there were reports that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones were in the bowels of that stadium in Carolina, huddling together, talking about what's wrong with the Dallas Cowboys. It's pretty easy to begin to pinpoint it's Jason Garrett and then Scott Linehan. And if they lose to the New York Giants on Sunday night, one of those two guys, perhaps both, may not make it toward the end of the season. But I believe that if the New York Giants lose that game on Sunday night, it also sets Eli Manning down the path of unemployment. Now, what I mean is this. I don't think Eli is going to lose his job on Monday, or even that week, or even this season. But if the Giants start 0-2, look what they have ahead of them. Look what they have coming after the Cowboys. They go to Houston to play the Texans. They play the Saints at home. Then they go to Carolina to play the Panthers. Then they have the Eagles. Then they go to Atlanta to play the Falcons. The Giants, very reasonably, could be looking at a schedule where they end up something like, 1-5, 2-6. And if you're in that mode, if you're in that kind of situation, you got to recognize, you got to realize we drafted Saquon Barkley to help Eli. We put weapons like Evan Ingram and Odell Beckham Jr. around Eli to win now. And if that's not happening, maybe it's time to look to the future. If this season goes this way for the Giants, they have to think, starting next year, it's time to begin the process of moving beyond Eli. It's time to draft a quarterback, sign a quarterback. It's time to look beyond Eli Manning. There's more than just this season on the line for the two teams playing on Sunday nights. Now, it's not just the teams on the field, but some of their former players who are making some noise. Dez Bryant has gotten to the stage, I believe, where it's gotten sad. Dez Bryant has overplayed his hand, first of all. A few weeks ago, I had this debate on First Take with Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, and I believe, at the time, I believed that Dez was playing it perfectly. Wait for an injury. Wait for the right team, the right contract to come up. But the problem is that perspective, that idea, and I recognized it at the time, had a lifespan. It had an expiration date. And what it was a few weeks into the season, because Andrew Hawkins, former wide receiver in the NFL, told me, you can't pick up an offense in week 4, 5, 6. You can't do it. You can't learn the playbook. And I believe Dez has arrived at that point. He's overplayed his hands. He's tried to Goldilocks this deal. You know, the Baltimore Ravens 3-year deal was too long. The Cleveland Browns 1-year deal wasn't just right. In fact, here's Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com talking about why Dez's deal with Cleveland didn't work out on Dickerson and Hood.
It wasn't about anything. It wasn't that he didn't want to play for them or they didn't like him or anything like that. Both sides really liked each other. It came down to the money. I know that he turned down a 3-year offer from the Ravens worth about $21 million. So you're talking, roughly $7 million a year there. He's just looking for a lot of money.
Dez tried to Goldilocks it. I think he overplayed his hand. And now, as I said, it's getting sad. I don't know if Dez Bryant was using a burner account on Twitter the other night. That's what everybody's alleging. Or I don't know if Dez was just quote tweeting him himself and talking back and forth with things he said in the past. Dez is a different dude. I don't know if he's using a burner account. But if he is, Dez shopping for teams, waiting for teams, overplaying his hand, interacting on social media, doing the Kevin Durant thing of going back with people, it's not right. It's not Dez, man. All these years, Dez, throw up the X, be tough, sent guys like Bubba sitting back in the studio in Bristol buying Dez Bryant jerseys, saying Dez Bryant's the most handsome man. That's what you said, Bubba, right? He's the most handsome man out there?
He's a good-looking guy. Also get to break.
That Dez was built on, I don't know, impenetrability. Is that a word? Toughness. That Dez was a superhero, man. Guys on social media airing out their thoughts. Maybe it's the ugly little thing that shows about all of us. We're all weak. We're all insecure. And social media is the worst thing because all it's ever done is expose it. I don't want to see that on Dez. I want to go back to the impenetrable Dez, the tough Dez. The Dez that didn't overplay his hand. The Dez that's not sad. Coming up, what's the thought going around the league about Le'Veon Bell's no-show? Plus, why the Bills are making the right call starting their rookie quarterback, Josh Allen, this week. MMQB's Albert Breer is going to join me next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030. The quarterback changes have begun. At least they have in Buffalo. Not yet in Cleveland. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Coming up in just a moment, we have MMQB's Albert Breer join us here on the Will Cain Show to talk about a few of these quarterback conundrums. But I do want to offer this PSA, quick public service announcement, and to educate our man Cerruti on something his dad had been saying to him his entire life. So apparently Cerruti says his dad has been giving him pieces of advice and, country colloquialisms from time to time, like, hey, keep your stick on the ice and don't drag your stick in the mud. Cerruti never knew what these meant, apparently. Just kind of took them, nodded, and said, thanks, Dad. Apparently, keeping your stick on the ice, Cerruti, means always adhering to fair play. Being nice to those around you when you play a game. Don't, in the analogy, high stick people through life. Your dad was telling you to play fair.
My dad knows nothing about hockey, though, so I'm not sure he knew that was the exact definition of the term.
He knows about fair play, though, apparently. And
Maybe.
I want you to get him on the phone. Call, is it Joe? Joe Cerruti? Get him on the phone because I don't have an answer for what keep your stick out of the mud means just yet. Now, joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line is MMQB's Albert Breer. Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Albert, we've got a quarterback change in Buffalo. They're going from Nathan Peterson. They're putting in the rookie, Josh Allen. I've kind of been in the camp of start these guys and start them soon, but it feels a little bit in Buffalo like you're throwing him to the wolves. Is he going to be all right?
Well, to me, that's the big question, Will. I think the primary difference between this year and last year for them is the offensive line. And they traded Cordy Glenn, which, I think was obviously largely voluntary because they had Deion Dawkins last year. And they needed chips to move up to go and get a quarterback. But they didn't expect to lose Richie Incognito and Eric Wood, and that left them sort of high and dry in the offseason. We saw the effect that it had on Josh Allen in that third preseason game when he got that audition to start. And then coming back in week one, the Ravens were able to get to both Peterman and Allen in that game. And so this is a continuing problem, and I think that the coaches, it's going to be incumbent on them to find a way to manage it around their rookie quarterback. To me, it's valuable to get him game reps. You also don't want to crush his confidence. You don't want to, do anything. You don't want to do any sort of permanent damage. And, I think going into the last couple of days, I sort of felt like, maybe it would be better to just let Nate Peterman take those hits, no matter what the result is, rather than have Josh Allen take them. I think the flip side of that is, if Allen can't stand up to that sort of punishment, or if his confidence is going to take that kind of hit, maybe you got it wrong anyway. And so you may actually find out something about Josh Allen by putting him in there. So I think there are two sides to the argument. But obviously I think that the coaches felt like at this point it was going to be hard to sell Nate Peterman as the best option to the locker room.
Yeah, I've kind of been in that camp as well, Albert, that if a guy's going to get ruined, he's going to get ruined. There's not much you can do to protect him. And I've had others like Dan Orlovsky, who works here at ESPN now, tell me, no. You can put guys in awful positions, be it David Carr in Houston or Patrick Ramsey with the Washington Redskins. You can put guys in situations where they had the potential, but you destroyed it. I just think so few quarterbacks get perfection. Like, situational perfection is afforded to almost nobody. So what are you going to wait on? And so I'm going to ask you this. Josh Allen gets second place in the rookie quarterback starting race. Who gets third? Josh Rosen in Arizona or Baker Mayfield in Cleveland?
I think a lot of that's going to depend on what you think of those teams and which one's going to sort of fall off the deck first. And I can tell you, I've studied this and I've looked back at it. And if you want to look at the last decade, 10 draft classes, 2008 to 2017, there were 27 quarterbacks that went in the first round. There were only really 2 true redshirts. Everyone else got on the field and got a chance to become the starter and to maintain the starting job. The 2 exceptions really were Patrick Mahomes last year and then Jake Locker in 2011. And what those 2 guys had in common, they were both playing for contenders. The Titans were 9-7 in 2011. The Chiefs won their division last year. And so what history tells us is that once a team falls out of play. And I think in both these cases, when Baker Mayfield plays, when Josh Rosen plays, is going to depend largely on the fortunes of the team. I think the Browns have and this is going to sound weird because they had this strange game last week. They're coming off an 0-16 season. I actually think the Browns might hang around for longer than the Cardinals. And if that's the case, I think that Josh Rosen probably gets in before Baker Mayfield. But that has very little to do with how good or how ready each player is.
I don't think that's crazy at all, Albert. I think the Browns have more than we want to believe based upon their last 2 seasons. But I don't know how many times they can run Tyrod Taylor out there with a 15 for 40 performance. That's not right. That's the kind of performance that get Baker on the field.
The other part of that too, the other part of that you want to remember is, again, I think the idea of what you're selling to your locker room is important. And I'll just tell you, Baker played really well in August in practice. And if Tyrod doesn't play well over the next few weeks, and he didn't play well in week 1, but if he doesn't play well over the next 5 or 6 or 7 weeks, and Baker continues to play well in practice, it'll become harder for Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley and that staff to sell Tyrod Taylor to the locker room. That's where it happens sometimes too. So, part of this can be Baker finding a way to show not only his coaches but his teammates that he's the best option for them.
Hey, Albert, let me see if I can fit 2 questions in here, but you sparked a curiosity in me. We're talking to MMQB's Albert Breer here on the Will Cain Show. Is everybody on the same page in Cleveland? Because certainly we have evidence to believe that there's many occasions where they're not, including starting Josh Gordon in week 1. But is everybody on the same page, Todd Haley, Hugh Jackson, John Dorsey, on keeping Baker on the bench?
I think for right now, yes. And look, I've talked to Hugh about this a couple different times. For Hugh, it's not really, about Baker at all. It's about not about how he's performing. It's about, making sure that they're doing right by him. And they didn't want to saddle him with all the history whether it's 1-31 over the last 2 years, whether it's how Cody Kessler and Deshaun Kaiser played the last 2 years as rookies, whether it's all the history over the last 20 years that first-round quarterbacks have had in Cleveland. They didn't want to saddle Baker with all of that. And I think that Hugh and Todd and John are all on the same page on that. I think where things could change there is when job security comes into play. And, anytime the head coach is inherited by the general manager, that head coach is on watch. And so I think if we were to get, again, 6-8 weeks down the line, and it looks like Hugh's job's on the line, which would mean Todd's job's on the line, maybe then they had that discussion and say, we need to turn to the rookie because the rookie is the one who can save our jobs now. So I think for right now, everything's fine as far as the quarterback situation goes. I think when job security comes into play, that's where things can change some as far as everybody walking in lockstep within an organization.
I don't doubt you at all. If you had told me the exact opposite, that there's a massive divide between Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson, I would have believed you on that as well. All right, man. I got to run. MMQB's Albert Breer. Appreciate your time today.
All right, thanks, Will.
Yep. Keep your stick out of the mud. Stay hard. Coming up, what is DBU? Do you know how many teams have laid claim to DBU? I think it's like 5. How about quarterback U? Who gets the claim to these titles in college football? That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Football season is finally underway, and if you play fantasy football, there's good odds you probably already hate your team and wish you could draft again. Well, on FanDuel, you can draft a new team every week. Plus, FanDuel's never been more fun or easier to play. If you're not a fantasy expert, then FanDuel's clearly the place to play because FanDuel has something for everyone, and there are more ways to win than ever before. FanDuel has a new tool called Guru to help you pick your lineup so you can make smarter picks and feel more confident going into game day. They've made it easy to find your friends and challenging them to play head-to-head contests for cash or for bragging rights. I know I'll be going on almost a week-to-week basis just to get Zeke Elliott because, man, he's going to blow up the league this year. So, new users to FanDuel can get a $20 bonus when they make their first deposit on FanDuel. Come play with me at FanDuel.com/Will Cain. That's FanDuel.com/WILLCAIN.
Can't get enough of Will Cain?
Larry in Florida, you're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Larry?
Will Cain, thanks for taking me on after 30,000 times of trying to get on. I'll make my point real quick.
Call him at 888-SAY-ESPN.
Sometimes when
Tell me how this stuff.
Hold on a second, Will. Let me speak, homie.
I'm listening.
Let me finish, Will. Why don't you let me talk, homie?
I am. You have my airwaves.
Okay, but then I can't talk if you talking.
Who's the real DBU? Who's the real quarterback U? A lot of teams, a lot of programs in college football lay claim to these kind of titles. Hell, I think when it comes to DBU, you could say at various times Miami, LSU, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas have all laid claim to being DBU. You see it on Monday Night Football's intros as these guys sit there and go, Antrell Roll, DBU, Miami. You hear it over and over. So who's got real legitimacy to their claim? That coming up in just a moment here on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app. But first, let's go to Dan from Tennessee. What's up, Dan?
Hey, Will. How's it going? Big fan.
Good, man. What's up?
I think a big oversight on the Le'Veon Bell thing is an apparent team in that Indy's got the cap space, and Andrew Luck, I mean, he's no Aaron Rodgers, but he's up and coming, and they're in a win now. You know, they got the new GM, new head coach. Why not Indy?
Okay, hold on. That's fascinating. Here's the thing. I'm going to revisit Le'Veon Bell coming up here in about 20 minutes, and you bring up a team that has one of the most cap space. In fact, number one, the Colts have the most cap space in the NFL. So the Colts are going to be in on anybody they want, and you have to talk about the Colts and Andrew Luck when it comes to being in on the Le'Veon Bell sweepstakes. But my question for you, my question for any Colts fan is, are you really in win-now mode? Are you really ready to go all the way? We'll do that topic coming up here in about 15, 20 minutes. The Will Cain Show is brought to you. By the way, see you. Thanks for the call, man. Stay hard. The Will Cain Show is brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings, a proud sponsor of College Game Day Tour Live this Saturday from Arlington, Texas, as Ohio State takes on TCU. Come to Buffalo Wild Wings for $5 game day deals. All right, so keep your stick out of the mud, keep your stick on the ice, stay hard. I've got one for you, Cerruti. So before I get to DBU, wide receiver U, when I was 22, I guess, this would have been right after college, I thought, here I am. I went to college in California. I'm from Texas, and I want to see the South. Like, I've never really done the South. My brother, he went to Auburn. I'll drop by, see my brother. One of my best buddies from college was from North Carolina. I'll swing through there, see him. And I took off on a road trip. I loaded up my dog. I had a Doberman named Leon. We were tight for over a decade. And it was just me and Leon. And we took off across the South, and we did state to state. We went to Vicksburg, Mississippi. We went to Auburn, Alabama. Obviously, we went to Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, South Carolina, Knoxville, Tennessee. I wanted to do it all. I wanted to see as much as I could. And I liked the idea of traveling on my own because you could be anybody you want. And I've done it a couple times in my life. I also moved to Montana for a year and did the road trip up there through Wyoming, New Mexico, and all that. And it's fun, man. And maybe that's part of figuring out who you are, is taking off the I don't want to torch the analogy, but taking off the clothes of the person you were born into. You know what I mean? You're kind of somebody based upon who your parents are and the way you grew up for a certain percentage of your life, and then you go to college, and that's an opportunity to try on somebody else. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a perpetual find yourself 25-year-old. But I've enjoyed doing that a couple different times in my life. So I'm cruising through the South. I think I was in Mississippi, and I'm just at a bar by myself, and I'm playing pool with a bunch of dudes that I don't know, and I decide to hang it up and head back to the motel that I'm staying at. And when I say motel, I'm talking about sagging mattress, $30 a night type deal. And as I leave, the guy says to me, "All right, man, keep it between the lines." He said, "All right, man, keep it between the ditches." And I was like, what is that? I don't really know that one. What does that mean? And then I thought about it, and I think I shared with somebody, like, those dudes were truck drivers. I was hanging out with truck drivers, and they were talking about keeping your rig between the ditches as you're headed down the road. Is that one you grew up with? You grew up with keep your stick on the ice, keep your stick out of the mud, keep it between the ditches. Did you have that one?
I've never heard of keep it between the ditches. I definitely heard of keep it between the lines. Ditches seems a little bit more extreme, I would say. Like, you definitely want to do that.
A little more leeway.
Yeah, late night, driving around, I get it, but...
You think about it, the lines are the man keeping you down. The lines are arbitrary. If you keep between the ditches, you're pretty safe.
You would say that.
All right. Who is the real DBU? Who gets to claim? Who gets legitimacy to the claim that so many make? As I said, LSU, Miami, Texas, Ohio State, Bama, all have claimed their DBU. This from Bruce Feldman, college football analyst. He put this out yesterday. This is current breakdown by position in the NFL and the colleges they went to. I'll save DBU for the end. Do you want to know which school is Punter University? That would be the Tennessee Volunteers. Put out 4 punters in the NFL. How about tight ends? That's a tie there. The Miami Hurricanes and the Stanford Cardinal both have 5 tight ends in the NFL. Running backs? That would be LSU. 6 running backs from LSU on active rosters in the NFL. And that's key here. We're talking about active rosters. All right, wide receivers. There's also a tie there. Clemson and Texas Tech University both have 7 wide receivers in the NFL. Now let's get to the 2 highlights. How about quarterback? You have yourself a 3-way tie for who gets claimed for quarterback university in the NFL. That's Michigan State, North Carolina State, and USC. All have 3 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Can you name them all?
And now finally, to settle the debate. Can I name all those quarterbacks? I can't. North Carolina State, because this is going to include backups, right? That's obviously...
Yes.
Do they get credit for Russell Wilson?
Yep.
Does Wisconsin get credit for Russell Wilson?
They have to get credit. I would imagine so.
All right. North Carolina, Mike Glennon.
Yep. It's a big one.
And...
Real big one.
Oh, Phillip Rivers.
Yep, there you go.
I got the Michigan State. Connor Cook, is he active? I don't know that he is.
There's a big one there too.
Michigan State, a big one. Who is it? I'm missing it.
Kirk Cousins.
Oh yeah. Can you get the third? Do you know it? Do you have it in front of you?
Brian Hoyer.
Oh, never. Not in 1,000 years. No. All right, USC. Sam Darnold. Carson Palmer's gone.
Cody Kessler.
Sanchez? Is Sanchez still an active wrestler?
I think he is,
Cody
actually,
Kessler?
yeah.
Matt Castle.
Barkley just got cut.
Matt Castle, that's right.
And Barkley just got cut, right? How's there not more? How many did we just name from USC? Matt Castle?
5.
So is Sanchez out? I don't know. All right. Tell you what, hang in, come back. I'm going to give you DBU, and I'm going to tell you who is it that could be the beneficiary of the quarterback controversy in Alabama. Where could Jalen Hurts end up next? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Who could go all in on Le'Veon Bell? Who's got the cap space? Who's in win-now mode to add a franchise running back? That's coming up in 15, 20 minutes here on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News. I've teased it. I've told you I'd give you the answer. Who has rightful claim to DBU right now in the NFL? What college is producing the most defensive backs? LSU, Miami, Texas, Ohio State. They've all at various times. Alabama claimed title to DBU. But right now, according to Bruce Feldman, college football analyst, the university with the most defensive backs in the NFL, with 10, is The Ohio State University. Ohio State right now gets claim to DBU. And we had this debate a moment ago. Right now, for claim to be quarterback university, you have 3 schools who are tied. Michigan State, North Carolina State, and USC all have 3 quarterbacks on active rosters in the NFL. We tried to name them. We played a little game of guessing who it is. And when it came to North Carolina State, we thought we got them all. We said Mike Glennon, Russell Wilson, and Phillip Rivers. That's 3. But who we forgot? Jacoby Brissett. So that means that Russell Wilson's not counted towards North Carolina State. He's counted towards Wisconsin because you got 3 clear North Carolina State grads in the NFL. And we were wondering who the USC quarterbacks are. So, Rudy, who are they? It's obviously Sam Darnold.
It's Darnold, it's Cody Kessler, and the last one is Matt Castle.
Matt Castle.
Because Mark Sanchez and who's the other one are both out, and Matt Barkley are both out of the league.
Yeah, Matt Barkley just got cut. I didn't know Mark Sanchez is out of the league. USC had 5 very recent. Well, I guess never Darnold and Sanchez weren't in the league at the same time. The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Talking about college quarterbacks, talking about programs that produce quarterbacks, got me thinking this past weekend as I watched Clemson, Texas A&M. The funny thing is, when you root for a school like I do, like the University of Texas, and you haven't had a quarterback in a decade, it breeds so much jealousy, like jealousy on the verge of rage. To look at a school like Clemson or a school like Georgia or a school like Alabama where they have not 1 but 2 quarterbacks that presumably can not just start but possibly lead your team into, I don't know, if not contention, relevant status in college football. I mean, Clemson has Kelly Bryant, who's a senior, and doing a great job so far 2 games into the season. And they have all-world recruit Trevor Lawrence behind him, who many are pushing to get on the field more. Georgia has Jake Fromm, of course, who's only in his sophomore year. And behind Jake Fromm, they have if not Trevor Lawrence, then the other star quarterback recruit from the past year in Justin Fields. And Alabama has, of course, Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. And Hurts and Fields and Lawrence, to a lesser degree, can't get on the field. Now, there's an awesome piece up at The Athletic right now by a guy named Max Olson who wrote about University of Texas's quarterback Sam Ehlinger. And it's a wonderful piece about Sam and his father, who died when Sam was 14 years old. His father had a heart attack when he was participating in the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon. He had a heart attack during the swimming portion, didn't make it out of the water. And the story goes into how Sam found out about this and how he turned into a man at the age of 14 and the lessons he learned from his father. And you read this story and you can't help but root for Sam Ehlinger. You watch Sam Ehlinger at University of Texas play and you can't help but root for Sam Ehlinger. He plays all out. But Could Texas be a place that a year from now we're talking about, or less than a year from now? Jalen Hurts transfers. Jalen Hurts is from Texas. Jalen Hurts is a junior. He has more time left. Jalen Hurts could go someplace else and find his starting opportunity. And many are suggesting he's going to do exactly that at some point. And it's not absurd to think about Jalen Hurts and where does he go. And for that matter, I ask you this. Can Georgia really manage Jake Fromm and Justin Fields? One's a sophomore, one's a freshman. Is Fields as big a quarterback recruit as he was? Is he going to sit for 2-3 years before he ever plays? I'll give you a perfect example of how the answer to that often is no, and how teams like Texas or somebody else that needs a quarterback can take advantage. As much as I talk about Clemson, Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence, a year ago, Clemson had one of the top recruits before Trevor Lawrence. They had a guy named Hunter Johnson, who was a 5-star recruit in 2017. Hunter Johnson was at Clemson for his freshman year, but when he saw the writing on the wall with Bryant and then Lawrence, he left. And now Hunter Johnson is sitting out his year at Northwestern, ready to take over for Clayton Thorson there. These guys move. These big-time guys, these big-time prospects with big futures don't sit. So can Georgia hang on to Justin Fields? And we know that Alabama probably can't hold on to Jalen Hurts. So who's ready to take advantage? University of Texas, might I suggest? Tweet the show through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at Will Cain Show. Nothing makes up for your football obsession like a surprise from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order a dozen multicolored roses plus an extra bouquet and a vase for just $29.99, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Yesterday, we shared with you the information, the news from Forbes magazine, that Texas A&M is now the wealthiest program, the most valuable program in college football. Texas A&M has surpassed the University of Texas as the biggest revenue generator in college sports. I went back through the list and I started thinking there's some interesting notes down the list. Teams you didn't think would be that high and teams that you thought might be higher. Couple of notes. Texas Tech, 25th most valuable college football program in the country. How about this one? Does this surprise you, Cerruti? Arkansas, 13th most valuable. Was that where you would have put Arkansas?
No, but those SEC West teams, man, like you just never know.
Well, in fact, there's 10 SEC schools in the top 25. Just to put that into focus,
Florida
3
State
Big
was
12
low.
schools. Florida State is the only ACC school in the entire top 25. Pac-12 has 3, Big 12 has 3, SEC has 10, Big 10 has 7. Something about that SEC. It's generating money. By the way, the ACC and Florida State will probably bump up when they get their own network. Coming up, we have an update. Oh, really? On the real quarterback university. Plus, Jalen Ramsey hasn't really backed up his trash talk. Not yet. And where does Le'Veon Bell end up? It's coming up straight ahead on The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Two different guys that need to show out for their NFL teams this weekend, but need to show out in two different ways. Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey better ball this weekend for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Aaron Rodgers better sit this weekend for the Green Bay Packers. The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. You can always join the conversation, 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Coming up in this hour, we're going to talk about where Le'Veon Bell could land in the offseason and how realistic that he could be traded by the Steelers during his holdout, during his sit, during this season. Who would be all in? Could it be Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers? That coming up and a little bit later here on the Will Cain Show. But when it comes to this weekend, Aaron Rodgers, should he play? Should he take the field against the Minnesota Vikings? He has what is being described as a sprained knee. And he's telling everyone, including our own Dan Levitard, that's day to day. Here's Aaron Rodgers talking about his injury.
Move around a little bit in a circle, small circle that I was moving in Sunday night. So if I can get back to that, hopefully a little better than that without pain, then hopefully I'll be able to go.
Man, I so much want to be the voice of the, if it ain't broke, get on the field. If you aren't bleeding, you're all right side of this debate. I so much want to be tough it out and play. I saw Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman debating this on First Take. I'm going to give you guys one guess. Guess which guy was on which side of the debate. Which guy was on the take the field side and which guy was on the sit side. So, Rudy, you get to guess.
Ooh, I'm going to say Max was on the sit side.
Yes. And Stephen A. was on the take the field side. And look, that's the side I want to be on. You want to be on the, come on, it's football. It's not broken. Play. Come on, it's football. Rub some dirt on it. Play. But if I'm the Green Bay Packers and I'm running that organization and I'm the guy putting the investment, the massive financial investment into Aaron Rodgers, there isn't any way I put that Ferrari with a busted wheel into a crash-up derby contest at the end of a dirt track race on Saturday night in Grayson County Speedway. That's what this game is going to be. The Minnesota Vikings come in with a mean, fast, hitting defense. They put Jimmy Garoppolo on the ground 3 times. Now, the Packers are no 49ers, and their offensive line is much better. But you're going to put Aaron Rodgers out there with limited mobility, Aaron Rodgers with a half-bum knee. You're going to put Aaron Rodgers out there and your season and your investment on the line for one game? No. It just doesn't work out. The risk-reward doesn't work out. If Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, if he gets hit, and it turns serious, A, you lose your season. And B, you potentially compromise your franchise, the guy you gave all this money to. And what do you do with all that risk? What are you putting that on the table for? Why are you putting the outcome of your season and potentially the long-term health of your franchise out there, rubbing dirt on it and saying, play, for the reward of potentially beating the Minnesota Vikings in week 2 of the NFL season? No. That risk reward is obvious enough that no person, no matter how tough you are, says that's a good bet. That's a good investment. That's going to Vegas and saying, you know what? I'm the one with real backbone here. I'm the one with risk tolerance. I'm going to walk up to the roulette table and put it on 00. Give me the green slot, please. I feel lucky tonight. It isn't worth it. Sit Aaron Rodgers. Don't play against the Minnesota Vikings. On the other side of the equation, Jalen Ramsey has to play, and he has to play well. You all know Jalen Ramsey's been talking trash all offseason. He's talked about every quarterback in the NFL. He said Tom Brady's all right. He said everybody else pretty much stinks. He's talked trash about every wide receiver he's faced or gonna face, including Rob Gronkowski, who he said's not that great. The Jags take on the Pats this weekend. Jalen Ramsey takes on Rob Gronkowski this weekend. So how's Ramsey doing so far in his back it up mode? Make no mistake, he's backed it up in the past, but how's he doing it so far? Well, week 1, he lined up against Odell Beckham Jr. And when they were one-on-one, Odell Beckham Jr. had 5 catches for 75 yards. I think he ended up with 8 for 92 against that defensive backfield, but one-on-one against Jalen Ramsey, it was 5 for 75. Advantage Beckham. I love that Jalen Ramsey talks trash, and I love that most of the time he backs it up. If he says Ben Roethlisberger's trash, well, Ben Roethlisberger's been trash when playing against Jalen Ramsey. But it's not just retrospective, Jalen. It's got to be forward-thinking as well. You got to back it up in the future. You got to back it up this weekend against Rob Gronkowski. Let's go to Austin from Georgia on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Austin?
Hey, Will, I just want to say, first of all, I'm a really big fan of the show.
Thanks, man.
I heard you were talking about the DBU issue. Which university was the real DBU? And
yes.
In my opinion, and I don't know if it's because they haven't really been a respectable brand in probably the last decade, but I was wondering why the University of Florida didn't get a lot more mention in those big names for the defensive back university.
Austin, you are not just a valuable listener and watcher of the Will Cain Show, you are a valuable fact checker as well, because as I pour through Bruce Feldman's Twitter feed, and Bruce Feldman is the one that put this out, several teams have claimed title to DBU, Texas, LSU, Miami, Ohio State, Alabama. According to Bruce Feldman, NFL active day rosters, the team that gets claimed to DBU right now is Ohio State with 10. But there are people who have responded, including Zach Alberverdi of Gatorbait magazine editor. I'll let you guess exactly which school that's affiliated with. And he says Florida has 12 DBs in the NFL. And what you're missing is several of those guys are on IR, and they should count. So, yes, Florida, if you count the guys who are on IR, Florida's DBU. And Cerruti, what did we decide? There's an update on quarterback U as well?
Yeah, so we had a caller that called in and mentioned that Michigan State had 4. But it's actually 3. He thought it was 4. He was wrong. It is 3. We forgot Drew Stanton, who plays for the Browns. So so Michigan State should have Kirk Cousins. They should have Brian Hoyer and Drew Stanton. Connor Cook actually is not on the active roster right now of the Carolina Panthers, so I don't think he counts.
I see.
So do you count that? Just like do you count NC State? Do you count Russell Wilson? Because that would be 4.
I'm going to have to let NC State fans and Michigan State fans fight that one out over the bar, at the bar. They're each stuck at 3. What's more valuable, Connor Cook on the practice squad in Carolina or Russell Wilson's few years at North Carolina State? Which one's the bigger weight to break that tie? Or is it USC with the recent departures of Matt Barkley and Matt Sanchez?
Quick question. Do you think NC State hits up Russell Wilson to give him some money?
Hey, if those two teams play, if Wisconsin lines up against North Carolina State, this has probably happened, right? Russell Wilson roots for Wisconsin, right?
I mean, I'd imagine so.
I would think. And Nuno, the answer to your question is yes, they hit him up for donations, without a doubt. The real question is, does he donate? Does he help? Does he have divided loyalties? The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Remember, you can listen to all 3 hours of the show on your phone on your ESPN app. Okay, coming up, why the Packers should be proactive in a trade for Le'Veon Bell. That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
This is Will Cain.
I do not know what position he plays.
All right.
I'm guessing he's not a pitcher,
No.
because that would be a different conversation.
Right, okay.
And I'm guessing he's not a catcher, because I feel like I've never seen a picture of Mike Trout in...
No, he's third base.
Mike Trout, he'll play center field.
And I did just call Matt Sanchez, for the third time this week. Even typed it into Google once this week, Matt Sanchez. It happens. Things get into my head. I can't get them out. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. If that's the worst thing I get stuck in my head, well, I'm off to a good week. If you folks knew the things banging around in here that I can't get out of my head, this job would last me 10 more seconds. This is Disney we're talking about here. By the way, we're talking about as well quarterback university, and there's this debate rolling now. Is it Michigan State? Is it North Carolina State? Does North Carolina State get credit for Russell Wilson? Does Michigan State get credit for Nick Foles? No. But I do think this is interesting. I asked Rudy this. What if we broadened it out? What if you took it back through the 90s, let's say 40 years, even into the 80s? Who gets it? Who's quarterback university going back through the 80s? What is that? Miami? USC? Rudy, you said Michigan? Who am I missing on Michigan? Besides Brady.
Greasy, Henny. I'm probably missing a bunch in there somewhere. I don't know. Just naming blue bloods.
Let's go back and find out. USC, Miami, Michigan. Who has the most NFL quarterbacks over the last 40 years? But let's talk about this for now. Could Le'Veon Bell be traded this season? A lot of talk about where Le'Veon could go after the season. We'll get into that in just a little bit here on the Will Cain Show. Who has the most cap space and who makes the most sense? But what about this season? What if the Steelers decide to quit throwing bad money after, or good money after bad? What if they decide to cut bait? Trade Le'Veon Bell. Who should go all in on him? This morning I woke up and I read a column by NFL Network's Adam Rank, and I liked it. I liked it a lot because he offered one team, the Green Bay Packers. They should go all in on trading for Le'Veon Bell. And Adam Rank joins me now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. By the way, you can see Adam on NFL Network's NFL Fantasy Live Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and Good Morning Football weekend Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern and Sunday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Adam, tell me your thoughts. I read your column, Green Bay, all in, Le'Veon Bell.
Well, first of all, I got to say thank you so much. I got to be polite, say thank you for having me on. And I don't know what the statute of limitations are if I say congratulations on your new show. I know it hasn't been a year. Is it like a wedding where I have a year to congratulate you on everything? Is that appropriate?
Well, first, is that the standard? I didn't know that. Do you have a year after a wedding to say congratulations and get your gift in? Is that what that is? That's the
rule, yeah. And I take full advantage of that as well.
Well, then we'll apply it to this as well, and I will say thank you, good sir.
Oh, well, thank you. And again, thank you for having me. And I really, this was something that my editors and I, we kind of were kicking around a couple of days ago, thinking about the Le'Veon Bell situation. Obviously, Pittsburgh doesn't want to pay him. He doesn't want to play there. Why not move on? Because we see it in so many other sports, in the NBA, in Major League Baseball especially. When you have a guy who's on the final year of his deal, why not get something for him when you have a chance? And Green Bay was the one that stood out to me, because the one thing that we've seen over the course of his career is that Aaron Rodgers is great, but they don't necessarily surround him. They don't necessarily go for it. They don't go all in. They seem to be so complacent. And I said in the column that they're not Title 10 anymore. They're complacency city. It's time to take a risk and do something bold and go after it. Go get a guy. I don't care about your draft picks. I don't care about the future. How about having one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history and trying to win with him when you have the chance?
I totally agree. Talking to NFL Network's Adam Rank here. I loved your idea. And the bottom line is this. Le'Veon Bell makes sense for teams, to me, that are in the win-now mode. It's hard for me to put him on the Jets in the future.
Right.
He's the final piece of a puzzle. And every year you have Aaron Rodgers, you're in win-now mode. I do wonder, Adam, two guys who are notorious for playing off schedule, who are, drawed up in the dirt, let's just win with our talent. Two guys, Aaron Rodgers and Le'Veon Bell. Is that magic together or is that chaos?
I believe it's magic. And I say this in full disclosure as a Bears fan, and this is my thing. I don't want to help the Packers. This gives me no pleasure to do this, but I feel it's my duty and my moral obligation as a journalist. Kind of like if you're a doctor and you see somebody out there choking, you have to help them out. I feel like I have to help the Packers out and say, look, this would be the most insane football team of all time. If you think about how Aaron Rodgers gets out of the pocket, he extends plays, and for what, I don't know how he does it, but he always finds a way to escape people, find the open receiver, and then he dumps it off to Le'Veon Bell, who takes it 80 for a touchdown. This gives me nightmares. I don't understand why the Packers don't want to do this.
Okay, well then they might. We don't know yet. You might just be brain trusting it for us out there as they talk about it behind closed doors. But you point out the Packers have 2 first-round picks. They picked up one from New Orleans this past draft, so they have 2 first-rounders next year. So they have the ammo. What do you think it would cost? I mean, we're talking about half a season of Le'Veon Bell with the opportunity, I guess, to negotiate an extension, but you can't do that until the beginning of the next season with under the franchise tag. So you get a half a season of Le'Veon Bell, be that from trade deadline's October 30th, so we're talking like week 9. What's half a season of Le'Veon worth? A first rounder? 2? What's it worth?
I would say at least a first-round pick. I mean, you had the opportunity to go out and get Khalil Mack. You had those 2 extra picks. I don't understand. If you saw, I mean, everybody saw the impact that he had on the game. That's what game changers do, is they come back and they change everything immediately. This Packers offense with Le'Veon Bell becomes unstoppable. I give them whatever draft pick they want. I say, I'll make it conditional. Whoever finishes worse between us or the Saints, you have that pick. I believe that it's worth it because you want to go for the Super Bowl. It reminds me of what the 49ers did in 95. They finally wanted to get over against the Dallas Cowboys, so they did whatever it took to bring in Dion, to bring in Ken Norton, to bring in, I think Richard Dent was part of that as well. You just did it. You just went after it. Salary cap implications, be damned. You win for right now. And I think anybody who was a 49ers fan in the 90s who was living in that moment, to finally get over on Troy Aikman and Evan Smith and Michael Irvin and all that stuff, it was worth it. Did you have a number of years where you struggled afterwards? Of course. But these seasons aren't guaranteed to anybody. And I think that having Brett Hundley be your starting quarterback for a little bit last year, having Deshaun Kaiser for less than a half of football should scare you straight. That should show you how fragile life in the NFL can be. And this is exactly why you need to go out and make moves like this.
It's a good idea. It is NFL Network's Adam Rank. You need to go check out his column on NFL.com. Adam, I enjoyed it. Enjoy your work. Thanks for jumping on the show today, man.
The pleasure was all on this side of the phone. Thank you so much. Congratulations once again, and continued success to you.
All right, thanks. Keep your stick on the ice. That's the NFL Network's Adam Rank here on the Will Cain Show on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Hope he keeps it between the ditches. You guys know what I mean? You feel me. You got what I'm saying. He's right, by the way. Packers need to go all in. They need to do this deal. Now, I don't know if they can, but more teams need to see their window and maximize it, like the Rams. Rams tried to go all in on Khalil Mack, offered a 1 and a 3. They see their window with Jared Goff on a rookie deal, and they're pushing it. They're pushing all their chips. Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, and Ndamukong Suh trying for Khalil Mack. This is their window. That's what the Packers should do with Le'Veon Bell. Now, is it realistic? Can they afford it? Can you trade a player in the middle of his franchise tag? Let's do this. Let's find out if you can do all that. Let's get into the nuts and bolts and ask somebody who knows. Yeah, we're being creative, but are we being realistic? Next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Stay hard.
So vaping is pretty popular right now. No ash, no odor, no brainer. But sometimes it's hard to find a satisfying vape that's simple and convenient. So Blue, who introduced vaping to the world, is now introducing MyBlue. MyBlue gives you all the satisfaction with none of the hassle. Just click and go. With MyBlue's easy-to-use one-click liquid pods, you can switch between flavors in seconds. You have a range of delicious flavors to choose from. Just 20 minutes to charge, and you're set all day. Plus, it comes with a free limited lifetime device warranty called MyCare. Ready to make the switch? Try MyBlue today at myblue.com. Not for sale to minors. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
I asked just a minute ago, if we expand this out, yeah, okay, Michigan State, USC, North Carolina State have the most quarterbacks in the NFL right now, but if we expand this out, go through the 80s or maybe in the Super Bowl era, what school, what university has produced the most NFL quarterbacks? I'm going to have the answer for that for you in just a moment here on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Plus, we'll talk about what teams have the free agency space, the cap room, to go after Le'Veon Bell come this offseason. You can give me a call, 888-729-3776 with your ideas. But we just had Adam Rank of the NFL Network on our show. He had a column out today saying the Green Bay Packers, they need to not just wait on Le'Veon Bell, they need to go get Le'Veon Bell this season. They need to trade for him. They have 2 first-round picks, and if this goes south for the Steelers in personality, in future, and maybe an opportunity this season, go see if you can sway the Steelers with one of your number 1 picks for half a season of Le'Veon Bell. You're always in win-now mode with Aaron Rodgers, so put a win-now running back next to him and see what kind of magic happens. But that brings up a question. Is that realistic? Yeah, we love that in fantasy football. We love that in creativity. Is it realistic for the Packers to be a landing spot for Le'Veon Bell? Well, to get into that, let's talk to ESPN senior NFL writer Mike Sando on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike, first of all, let me ask you this. You can trade a player who's been franchise tagged, but how does that work? Does the tag go with him? Does he can't negotiate a new contract, right? How does this work?
Well, first he would have to sign the tag, the tender. So when you're franchise tagged at whatever, $14 million, $15 million bucks, that means there's an offer on the table, but it's not fully guaranteed. You're not with the team really until you sign it. He has not signed it. So to facilitate a trade, he would have to sign that deal. Unfortunately, because we've reached past a deadline involving franchise players, that's all he can sign for this year. He can't do a long-term deal. So if you're the Packers and you're willing to give up a first-round pick, you would ideally want to have Le'Veon Bell signed to a new long-term deal so that he doesn't just leave in the off-season and go sign with the Lions, right? And then you've given up your first-round pick for nothing. So that's a complicating factor for sure. And then, to me, the biggest complicating factor is just the Steelers aren't going to trade him, in my opinion.
Well, let's get to that in just a moment, Mike, but I want to work through the possibilities first.
Yeah.
Okay, I get what you're saying. You're going to give up like a first-round pick for what amounts to half a season of Le'Veon Bell, because also, give me this, they can't negotiate with him while he's in the building. So he's traded to the Packers, right? He signs the franchise tag. He plays under the franchise tag. They can't, in the meantime, negotiate with him for when free agency begins either, right? So it starts.
Correct.
The first time the Packers get to talk to him about an extension would be when the Lions get to talk to him about an extension, right?
No, I think it would be before that, after the season ends. I believe that you could, but there's a lot of, you would really need trust, obviously, with the agent and the player. Maybe a sort of wink, and hey, we're willing to go to whatever that number is per year, that sort of thing. But those things are hard to do because things can change between then and now. And so it does make it complicated. The Packers are, though, a really interesting team in all these discussions because they have the extra picks. I think that's why they came up a little bit talking about Khalil Mack, right? I mean, and they have a new GM who is going to be a little more aggressive than Ted Thompson does in acquiring players from other teams, although in Ted's defense, they did go get, some veteran players in the trade market over the years, but they weren't aggressive in the veteran market generally. So it does make some sense. I think there's other teams that could be interesting too.
Let me ask you this, Mike. Let's stick with the Packers for one more question, though. So they're way down the list. We're talking to Mike Sando here on the Will Cain Show about the idea that Le'Veon Bell, what he'd be worth, what he could get. Could somebody trade for him if this Steelers thing midway in the season is absolute failure? The Packers have $39 million in cap space I'm looking at. It's way down the list. I think it's in the teens. So let's call it 16 teams or so above them in cap space. Could they give Le'Veon what he wanted anyway?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you definitely could. I mean, the cap space to me is a great excuse for most teams to use when they don't want to do something, but it never prevents you from signing a great player if you want to get it done. It's kind of like, I mean, you can find a way to get it done. Where there's a will, there's a way. You can do it.
All right. And that's how we've all come to believe as fans anyway. So you behind the numbers realize that as well. Okay. But you just brought up for me here other teams. What other teams do you find should be in on Le'Veon Bell, if not the Packers?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple ways to look at the teams. So a team like the Jets that, is trying to help out Sam Darnold, doesn't have a ton of great weapons on offense, and doesn't have a Aaron Rodgers type contract quarterback, right? It's easier to sign players and pay them a lot of money when you don't have a quarterback who's eating up, $25 or $30 million a year in a salary. So I think they're an interesting team. The Browns are an interesting team. I don't think he'd be traded in the division, but if we're talking, after the season, if he were to hit the market, they've shown a willingness to go get Jarvis Landry's and those types of guys, and they certainly could use somebody to help out Baker Mayfield, and he would be a huge upgrade. The Bucks, I have sort of been looking for a running back, I think, the last couple of years, and haven't really solved that. I doubt, that Oakland would really do it, but you never know. You got, John Gruden may be more interested in paying an offensive player. I know, he loves Le'Veon Bell, the versatility he would bring. It would certainly help out their offense, would help out Derek Carr, and they could have some flexibility after deciding not to pay Khalil Mack. So I think those are some interesting teams to keep in mind.
Let me ask you one last question here. Mike Sando on the Will Cain Show talking about whether or not Le'Veon Bell could be suiting up someplace besides Pittsburgh next year. The answer is probably yes, and where becomes the question. To me, a running back, a guy like Bell, while the Jets have the cap space, the Browns have the cap space, a guy like that, to me, Mike, is a win-now player. He's a final piece of the puzzle player. He would help Darnold, but they already have a bad line. Are they ready to start winning next year? So I start looking in that's how you get to the Packers. To me, I'm looking at the Texans have a ton of cap space. The Raiders are a little closer to the we should be winning with Carr. Do you look at it the same way? You look at teams who are ready to start winning now, and that's where Bell should end up?
Well, when you talk about should and where would it make the most sense to get that team over the top, I think that is a consideration. Usually in free agency, the money is going to speak, and I think he's a young enough guy. It's not like he's got 1 year left. He may have 3-4 good years to go. Look at the teams that could use a running back. The Redskins drafted one this year. He got hurt. How close are they? I mean, we don't really know, but let's see how their season goes. Do they feel like that would be a huge piece for them to help get them over the top? I think you could, with a player that great, and you can find any team that really doesn't have a great running back. Put him with Andrew Luck, right, in the Colts. There's all.
I don't know if they're win now, right?
No, they're not. They're not. But you're never far away when you got Andrew Luck. He took them to the playoffs 3 times, when they didn't have a great team. So, yes, it would be great to have him put your team over the top. But, what team could be closer than New England? They're not going to go to the top of the market and pay $15 million a year for a running back. I mean, how many teams are?
Right. All right, good stuff, Mike. Appreciate you jumping on with us today.
Thank you.
It's ESPN NFL senior writer Mike Sando on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I forgot to tell him to stay hard. Or keep it between the ditches. Or keep a stick on the ice. Or keep a stick out of the mud. I'll do better next time. Drew Brees paid a huge compliment to Baker Mayfield. I'll tell you what it is. And who, after our research, is the real quarterback university over the Super Bowl era. Next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Tomorrow, at this time, we'll have my mess-ups of the week. I don't think there's been many that I can think of.
I mean,
might be difficult for you
There's always
guys.
plenty. It's just how bad are they? Really?
Will pretending like Pablo Picasso cut off one of his ears and rolling with it make the top 5?
Well, you have to tune in tomorrow.
Stay hard. Mixing up Vincent Van Gogh and Pablo Picasso and acting like you're a smarty pants? Probably. I will contend already, if anybody but Bubba wins this week, I'm quitting this show, and it's rigged and everything.
Oh, good to know. That's what you have to do to get rid of you? Sweet.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. You rig everything. We've already known this. You had the Maven in, rigging all the
it's true.
That's
the
just
music
ridiculous.
trivia. You want to take a show vote? You want to take a quick show vote? Let's go around the horn real quick. Does Bubba rig the contests, all right? Cerruti, does Bubba rig the contests?
Collusion, yes.
Yes. Okay, Nuno, is Bubba in cahoots on most of these things and rigs the contests?
That is correct.
Someone explain to me how I rigged
No, it's
the
okay.
Music
Hold on.
Maven.
This is a big vote. Bubba, hold on. Don't give up hope. You could be the tie. Let's see how I vote. Does Bubba rig the contest, whether or not it's music trivia or Will's mess-ups of the week? Which way will I go? I'm going to go with, all the time. Sorry, Bubba, 3-0.
I'm not a gangster rap maven.
It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News. Baker Mayfield got some serious compliments from a big-time quarterback in the NFL. That in just a moment. But I promised you, who is the university producing the most quarterbacks in the NFL in the Super Bowl era? I went back. This is pretty accessible online, so I'm happy to be your Google of sports talk radio. But it turns out here on Wikipedia, USC has 15 quarterbacks. That's in the lead. Notre Dame at 13, Washington at 12. And Miami, who I thought would be in the lead, comes in at 4th with 10. What's up, Nuno? You got somebody that takes issue with this? Is this what you're telling me?
Yeah, we got a caller on line 2. Jordan from Nashville has some issue with this topic and who he thinks should be QB. You.
What's wrong, Jordan? What's the issue here?
Man, I think, first of all, hook 'em horns. I'm from Texas, but I live in Nashville now. But I was just calling to say,
there we go.
I know we're looking at the numbers of quarterbacks that have been in the NFL, but I think it's more about quality than quantity. And I think, like, if you look in Super Bowl era, you got to look at schools like Stanford, who had Plunkett and Elway and Luck. And then you got to look right now, currently, I would say University of Cal, because you got Jared Goff, you got Aaron Rodgers. That's a potential NFC championship game.
What's Michigan have, right? They have Brady. What else do they have? Anything else right now? Could be right, man. Could be right. Quality's got to go to Cal. I can't think. Purdue? Actually, Purdue comes up in some of these rankings. I had a guy tweeting me about Purdue. And if you look back, various schools have claimed quarterback university, just like DBU, over time. In the 80s, it seemed to be a big battle between BYU, Miami, a handful of other schools. And if you go back, apparently to the 60s, Purdue was claiming quarterback university. And one of Purdue's big-time quarterbacks is Drew Brees. Drew Brees, from Austin, Texas, had this to say about Baker Mayfield from Austin, Texas. He said, I think he can be a lot better than me. Drew went on to lavish a ton of praise on Baker Mayfield and included him in the 6 foot and under club. And Baker's like 6'1.5", so Drew was happy to accept that as part of the club. Drew Brees, big fan of Baker Mayfield. The question is, when will Cleveland be big fans of Baker Mayfield? Because if Tyrod Taylor keeps having 15 and 40 outings, I would have to think that sooner rather than later. I want to pick up on one more thing before we turn it over to Spain and Fitz here at the top of the hour on ESPN Radio. I talked earlier about Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant is a guy that I've rooted for a ton throughout his career. Dez Bryant, to me, embodied toughness, overcame his upbringing, dignity in a lot of ways. Dez Bryant took it, not just survived, thrived. And man, I hate what social media turns us into. I really honestly do. My jury is out. Is social media bringing society down or lifting it up? I mean, it's fun to get the latest nugget of information from Adam Schefter on Twitter, but when I have to turn around and see Dez Bryant quote tweeting himself, and many are suggesting he has got a burner account, it's just like, man, it's so beneath him. It's so beneath us. And the truth of the matter is, it's not Twitter's fault. It's not social media's fault. It's such a window into the petty, little, dirty thoughts that exist in all of us. Because the truth is, it's in there, right? We just weren't letting it out. Except maybe when we got drunk or something with our buddies, and reeled off the I love you mans or the I always hated you. You were never my friend. Now we put it on Twitter. And, I mean, whether or not you're a superstar like Kevin Durant or in the NBA or Dez Bryant in the NFL, it's just a little bit shocking to keep turning around and being like, you've made tens of millions of dollars. You're a worldwide, if not that, countrywide superstar. What in the God's name are you doing creating a burner account on Twitter? What in God's name are you doing with all this pettiness? It's gross. But it's in us, I guess. That's all it is. It's not the cause. It's just the window. All right. Before I go, Cerruti, Nuno, Bubba, what do you have for me? Go ahead. What do you have for me?
Just toss it to us randomly?
Stay hard. Mm-hmm.
Well.
The Mets won on a walk-off. They had back-to-back solo home runs, so they won game 1 of the doubleheader, and that was pretty cool.
So, Bubba, so what do? You put in the books. Gosh, even I know. Go ahead, Nuno.
And David Wright is going to retire, maybe not retire at the end of the year.
Yeah, one more game for him, 30 seconds.
And Jacob deGrom's going to get the Cy Young, right?
He better, yeah. He might even get the MVP the way he's going.
DeGrom.
What I said? That's what I said.
I think you might have rolled an R there somewhere.
Grom? Jacob DeGrom? Like that? No, I didn't do that. You can't put that in tomorrow. Tomorrow, my mess ups, 5:45 Eastern Time. Spain and Fitz coming up next.